I know.
So, okay, we are live,
I'm accustomed to being a
but you are cute also.
cute.
She said, I'm a cute. She meant to say I'm accustomed, but she said I'm a cute. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, so thank you for joining us. We, one of the charges of this committee, as you know, was to look at per diems and figure out a better way of doing per diems than just saying everybody gets $50 a day unless somebody gets more. And that's the kind of the way we've been operating. And so we came up with this scheme last year after doing, looking at a lot of states and how they did it. And then you made changes in the actual bill, and we just need to understand what you did. And that's why we asked you to come, so that we could have an understanding of it, of what you changed, and what was it really a change to what we had proposed, or was it just a rewriting and a slightly different process? Does that make any sense?
We're trying to remember.
I think I can explain it a little more.
Okay.
So we put in the bill originally that the governor would submit to the General Assembly a separate report recommending per diem changes. So I'm just paraphrasing now. What I believe was added was that the agencies or departments that administer boards and commissions would also make a recommendation with respect to increases in per diems in their annual budget documentation, so that it would be in two places instead of one. And so our question is, why was that important to make that change?
Okay, can I just go one?
I think
that
the language that the agencies administrating agencies would have their, there was a desire for consistency and fairness. And we were concerned about the creep. Everybody would say, my board, who's on it should get the maximum. And I think you had you had a limit in terms of what the per diem was?
No, I don't think so. What we did is we said that each agency and department should decide. Some boards probably don't need more than $50 because they don't do a lot of work. Some boards, like the parole board, does a lot of work and they get more. And we thought that it should be the agency and the department that determined,
well, I think
what it should be.
When that came, our concern was everybody at each individual department or agency is going to look at it from their perspective, but there needs to be some sort of focal point that there is fairness and consistency across all of state government, and that there be criteria. Now, I know, for example, the climate action group, and talking with the secretary, they were really struggling with getting people to serve because those positions were almost like adjunct staff in terms of the, the credentialing, the area of expertise, and the amount of time. And so we saw that there was, and I'm only speaking when we were talking about the bill, it's, everything kind of gets funneled down to the corner suite, so it's hard to remember, but that there be a mechanism and an ability to really take a look, short of coming in to the budget process, which is kind of after the fact. And so it was more a way that this is, if we wanted to recognize the great disparity in terms, because there's some, in fact, you might be only meeting for an hour or 2 hours. On the other hand, you've got others that require a lot of reading involved, like the Human Services Board. You'd have a lot of the the arguments that are being presented as to why there's an appeal. And so it was a way of having some ensuring some consistency and fairness in an advanced way, as opposed to hitting the budget and then we say, well, geez, we don't agree with that. We think that's out of whack, or look at what that department's doing relative to what you're proposing here. And so it was, what should be the framework? What should be the criteria that these higher payments are being made, and why are they justified? And so that was, it was from that, it was from that perspective that we were sort of saying, we know that this is a problem. We hear it from certain agencies, depending on the nature of the work, the volume of the work, the time, and the fact that in some cases, if you want an attorney to serve or you want an environmental engineer to give up their time, you're probably not going to get them for $50 a day. So maybe I was thinking about this, maybe the other thing is, maybe we shouldn't be doing per diems. Maybe they should be doing them. You can contract for services under $2,500, real easy, no bid contracts. Yeah. Maybe we should be looking at, in some of these cases, something other than the per diem mechanism. So that's kind of my recollection of why we did what we did.
So can you just tell us what the process would be?
So if I understand, so you're looking for some sort of advanced
Yes.
explanation as to why, rather than just having to react to the budgetary
Right.
numbers initially.
Well, and to put it, if I may, into a context. So there's some, as Senator Kitchell said, obviously just a $50 a day per diem makes sense. There are other that are highly technical. And what we were seeing increasingly is also this desire to draw in folks who are not traditionally involved in being able to reimburse them so that they could participate on boards and commissions. I'm sure you hear about this all of the time. And we were seeing rather ad hoc and creative and perhaps illegal or brushing on legality solutions to how to engage folks. And so rather than on a one-off basis, let's put it in a context and understand, see everything and understand what goes in bucket one, what goes in bucket two, and what goes into bucket three, and to be able to see the whole rather than to react to the individual needs, which are real and we should be thinking about. But it starts getting all over the board when you do it on a one-off.
Right, as you do it as a one-off in response. Well, I've got this particular, and so ad hoc, and then you discover that you've got huge variation. And so it was really saying, what should be the role of the administration? Totally, the executive branch, recognizing that different departments are going to see things differently or have different needs, and that there be a point where there's a review and and some parameters around what to justify why that higher compensation is being requested or being acted on. And so that would be in advance, and the administration would view it, just like they do position, many of the other personnel related activities. And then we would deal with it when it comes to the budget, but that's after the fact.
Yeah.
And so it was really looking at 2 points, one of which is making sure that there's a consistent and fair approach. And because we've seen this before, in terms of disparity, and then and give some rationality to the different levels of payment, and do it at the executive branch level in advance. It's just part of their administrative responsibility, and then we would look at it. But once it's in place, it's very hard to say, well, we disagree that person should have gotten $300 a day versus, I don't know, 200 or whatever. So that was our thinking about how to set up a structure that would give us greater assurances around equitable treatment, consistency of decisions, justification for the hire, because there inevitably is some creep. And then that would be more in advance. It would be at kind of at the tail end. Because these payments have to be accommodated within their operating budgets.
So I got a couple questions, unfortunately. So do you envision this advanced justification, for lack of a better way to phrase it, would that apply to every position for every board? And would it apply to every position on every board annually for every budget, or if there's a change to the position? I got to tell you, my initial reaction, this is a kind of a heavy lift for some of these agencies. Have several boards that they have jurisdiction and oversight over.
Well,
They're having to make a decision now. So the question is, what is the basis for making that higher payment? And I wouldn't see it, board by, it would be, I would think you would do it, by the board itself.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Like
Because
the
every
human service board, you're not going to say, well, we're going to pay you X and you member, you get Y.
Yeah.
So it would be by the nature and function of the work of the board.
Would you have them do it sort of like once and then it's sort of status quo until there's some sort of a change proposed? Or are you looking for, I guess, a pre-authorization, or however you want to phrase it, every time that you're addressing their budget?
No,
I think just the once. This is a reset of let's stand back, see what we're doing, make sure that it's rational.
Okay.
And, hopefully in the management of those boards and operations, people would periodically look at it, but think of this as a reset. But if I may, I'm also hoping that they will think deeply about, do we need this? Do we need this board? I mean, that's what you guys are doing all the time, but hopefully this will cause the administrative agencies to think about it. And are we properly remunerating the people? And should we be, it's not just should it be 50 or $100 a day, but it's looking again at the workload and their ability to engage folks that they should be having, and figuring out how to bring those people onto boards and commissions appropriately. Having reset it, hopefully that work would sit for a while.
So it's a one-time reset is right. Okay. All right.
So thank you. I understand. This is not different than what I thought we had done. We just didn't separate it into kind of those steps. But I think that that is essentially what we were trying to get at, was that they would look at this, and then you, of course, just in the budget have the final say. But that, yeah, I don't think that's different than what our intention was. I think it's just clearer the way you've laid it out.
Just for clarification's sake, though, I mean, they would have the final say on the budget.
On the budget.
But if you're looking for an explanation as to why, who would that go to? The committee of jurisdiction? I mean, obviously the administration's going to weigh in on it, but
I would think that if agency X decides that this board needs to be paid $125 a day, that they would justify it to the budget makers in the administration, to the governor and to the Secretary of Administration and the budget and finance people, and probably involving Tracy, who makes appointments and might know how hard or easy it is to appoint people to different boards because of the requirements, and that they would have the say. I mean, that's where the justification would have to be.
Looking to the executive branch to set
Yeah.
up that structure.
Yeah.
To review these proposals for the higher
Yeah.
PMs. And they, we get them certainly through joint fiscal committee when they're requesting limited service positions, that kind of thing, so.
In our budget process, and the House and the Senate operate differently, but we refer, on the House side, we say to each jurisdictional committee, what do you think of this budget? And embedded in that would be whatever. So the jurisdictional committees would have a shot at it. Mm-hmm. I can imagine also then if, people are concerned on either side of the body, y'all would hear about it. It would come to your committees if it is and I think we would automatically, well, it gets embedded in the budget, so it wouldn't automatically just, you'd see the report in House General and, yeah.
So I only have two, in the language, it says that we should make a recommendation of whether there should be a maximum. And I'm not sure that anyway, I think that might be a problem that we have not dealt with that. We just kind of left that up to the budgeting agencies. We didn't talk about it. And it also says legislative actions necessary to increase uniform and equality of per diem rates. And when I read that, I said, well, they're uniform now. We could put them all back at $50 and then there would be uniformity and equality across the board. But I don't think that's what you meant here. So I just was concerned the way that was written, that it seemed to say that they should be uniform across the state, the per diems.
Well, I think then if their uniformity across, if you've got several boards that have, say that they're, you would call them the $50 range or the 100 or whatever, that's why that review process by the administration would make sure that there's uniformity, so that if you've got a board that is not very demanding and time-wise, and they're in multiple areas of state government, that there would be uniformity in terms of per diem.
Okay, that was.
I think in terms of buckets.
Yeah.
Buckets.
A bucket, everything in one bucket, if it's all similar, then people ought to be reimbursed similarly.
Like job classifications.
Yeah. And we didn't want it to be horribly complicated, but you can see what we were saying is, geez, by the time we get it, it's already a fait accompli when it's in the budget.
Yeah.
As opposed to making sure that we do have some consistency and that they're across all of state government, and that there is a justification for why that payment. And whether it makes sense or not to have a maximum, we were saying that's an open question. And should there be, should there not be? With this advanced review, perhaps that's a maximum at this point. Is it necessary? But that we're kind of asking for your thinking on that.
So just so that I understand, so that you're looking for it to be a one-time kind of reset. Would the advanced justification only be required on those per diems that changed? In other words, like we've all said, that the $50 day ones are going to stay that. Are you looking for, I guess, an explanation for everyone position initially?
Oh, no. I think we were asking if you wanted to move and have a higher per diem, then you would have,
You justify
why that is being proposed. And for anybody getting 50 and you say that's about right, I'm thinking about what do we pay jurors? That raises
30.
Different 30. No, we were thinking about for those board members that like the Climate Action Committee, if in fact they wanted to say, we need to pay 500, not 50, then, or even anything above what has been the standard practice, that there'd be a rationale for doing it. No, if every department said, we just think 50 is too low and we want to move it up, then the administration will probably have some internal discussion around that.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to, is that unusual in the budget process? In that when an agency is going to come in with a budget request, and it's traditionally a little different, do you require and get a fair amount of advance information around that particular change?
The House more so.
Yeah, I mean, because of just the way the process works. And I am having a hard time remembering if there have been existing boards, when there have been requests for changes within the existing boards. This tends to come up, in my recollection, it has come up as we've looked at new entities, at the creation of new boards. Although the reason we got in House Appropriations very focused on this was maybe 10 years ago, when we realized the Women's Commission was paying its members less than everybody else was because of some old history. And that's when we became very intense on, by golly, everybody's getting the same pay regardless of gender. But that's the only time I recall that coming up. But then it became an issue with these new ones being created, and certainly the Climate Council, and then some of the environmental justice groups, where there's been an interest in engaging historically people who have not been able to participate because of work commitments or ability to be here or just access to the body for financial reasons. That became a fairly large discussion in different committees of just how to enable folks who traditionally have not been able. But it's been over the new boards rather than the existing ones. But I would say, and you know, some of our colleagues, when they talk, for example, about the amount of time that they spend on the judicial, their two judicial appointing committees.
Nominating and retention.
Nominating and retention. The amount of time that is put into that work that we're not reimbursing people for. So that's another interesting question. It's not just, did I show up for the meeting, but am I being, compensated for the amount of work that I have to put into this?
Like human rights. Some of those cases, they've got
rugged,
like 500-600 pages of material. So we just knew there was tremendous variation, and if we recognize and we need flexibility, just wanted to have in advance a review of the movement up in reimbursement. And we thought adding it and bringing it as something already completed in the budget process was not giving us the kind of the comfort that that there would be that consistency, equity, uniformity out there. And so that was kind of the thinking behind it. In terms of the maximum, some people were saying maybe ought to have a maximum of 200 or 500 or something. And we just didn't feel equipped to go there.
Matt?
I'm going to complicate this slightly because I have a slightly different take on this. I've served in 3 different capacities. I've been a state employee, I've been a legislator, and now I'm considered an outside individual who serves on a board and a panel. And I don't know how to answer this question, but I'll pose the question to you. There's, at this table, there's individuals who get three different pay for the same job. Now, I don't particularly care. I'm retired and I serve as to help out, to participate in the process. So it's not money for me. But if you were serving next to somebody, and I'll pick on my friends, the legislators here, they get paid a different salary, a different per diem than I get, or an outside individual gets. For those individuals who are state employees, they get paid a different sum of money than outside individuals do. So when you're saying per diem, $50 or this and that, actually, it's whatever the most, whether a state employee gets, a day's pay, that could be the maximum. Or whether it's a legislator who serves, that would be the maximum. So I just ask you to consider that there's a different way of looking at this. And for myself, like I say, I don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me. Pay is not what I participate for. But if I'm serving with three different groups or two different other groups, and I look and say, hey, this individual's making 3 times as much as I am. I'm participating just as much as they are. How can that be fair? All right. So I would ask you to consider taking a look at maybe how some other states may handle that thing. And I'm not suggesting to my friends, the legislators here, that they get $50 a day, although that's a possibility that we could probably investigate. State employee participates, should they get their daily pay? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. But there is an issue about fairness and equity. All of us serve, all of us read the same documents, all of us participate in the debates and discussions in the votes, et cetera. So if you could find an answer to that, I'd appreciate it.
I would say that belongs in the subject matter committee.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
I agree. I go to a lot of meetings and I'm the only one who's not getting a dime.
Right.
You look around and I've heard other, legislators make the same comment. And I'm sure if I'm a juror and I'm getting $35 a day, I feel it even more so when I'm sitting there because the judge is earning more, the clerks are. So that would be a lot to tackle because there's just huge disparities that are probably historical in nature in terms of who's getting how much and for what. Yeah.
Well, another part of his question is where does the public service component of this come in to? Whether you're talking school boards, select boards, servers on boards and commissions for the state, there always has been a public service component to it as well.
Absolutely. But what we are also observe in that public service component is that some people are more able to step up to that service because of, they don't have to pay for childcare. They're not working 2 jobs. They're not having other demands on them. And how do we figure out how to draw in a diversity? We've had this conversation about the legislature, that's an important foundational question. And I agree, it also, is similarly evident in the boards and commissions that do so much work for us.
Well, and to piggyback on Matt's, it gets even more complicated than that because if we had 2 state employees on this committee, their salaries are probably different. So you have, the state employees aren't all getting the same salary. I'm sure that Tracy's salary is a little bit different than a secretary's salary. Or maybe not, but so I think that it gets even more complicated.
I just mention it because
Yeah.
I've served in all 3 of these capacities and been paid 3 different salaries. for basically the same work. I mean, that's what it is. I participate. I have one final question though, if I can ask that. I serve as the chair of the District 5 Environmental Commission. And there's been, I don't have an issue regarding the per diem, but I've heard other individuals about the issue. And when you're the chair, I think it's arguable that you participate at a higher level, you have higher responsibilities, et cetera. I had to stay out of the discussion regarding, rightfully so.
One moment.
Okay,
1 moment.
that's your own phone telling you.
So anyway, I didn't do that on purpose. So the question, I guess, is, since other individuals have raised the issue, what would we are quasi-judicial, we're quasi-judicial law. We have site visits, hearings, et cetera, many of them contentious. Yeah. So anyway, so I don't mean to get into it too deeply, but that might be a role that might be worthy of further investigation, of further detail. And again, I didn't raise the issue. I've heard other people tell me, and
But let me, you're getting paid a per diem, is that right?
yes,
So,
all chairs get it.
yeah, so this sounds a bit like the Human Services Board where you're doing the site visits, you're really doing, you're kind of in a quasi judicial role. That, in fact, those appointments or those board members might in fact benefit from this discussion, because you could say the argument sounds like very similar to the Human Services Board. What the time demands, the nature of the work of the board, et cetera, is different than something that might be a more pro forma advisory committee. So it seems like that might be one of the boards that would be subject to a proposed increase.
I bring it up.
Yeah.
I've had the discussions with other
Yeah.
individuals, so.
It's another good example of, something that deserves another look at.
Get it.
Yep, go ahead, Tracy.
Just as a point of clarification, and if I missed it, I'm sorry. The advance notification is actually getting to the legislative body how? I mean, I guess I'm, okay.
It's not. What we're saying is we have to have confidence that there's a structure in place in the executive branch to review the justifications and the increases that the operating agencies or departments are putting in place. So it would be internal to the administration, that
Kind
review.
of part of the budget.
And the
process.
service, but then what will come to us, it's already in place, it's more informative. We could, although once something's in place, it's very hard to change it. We say, well, that seems out of kilter with X, Y, Z or whatever, but it's after the fact.
Thank you.
So that was why we wanted to say, there needs to be something before it actually happens, to have some basic criteria set forward to justify the increase. And then we would, after it actually has been done.
Thank you.
No, we do not want to get into the approval.
No, thank you.
I know I'd heard you say, in the budget process, it's too late, so I just wanted to
No,
clarification.
to have a second set of eyes to say this seems to be out of kilter with what we're seeing in this other agency. We thought that role ought to be carried out by the executive branch.
And I think that's how we,
Envisioned it, I think,
Envisioned it.
probably.
yeah, this is clearer because it delineates the steps, kind of. Any other questions or comments or concerns?
I don't want to talk about pensions, do we?
We'll have an opportunity to do that later, Senator.
I'm the last one, I'm the last buffalo on that one. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Great.
Yes,
Thank you for your work.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking to us. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
We just needed to understand.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you can see how we were looking at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Came in.
Makes perfect sense. Me, anyway.
Yeah, and as the reporter from the Government Operations Committee in front of Senator Probst, I might not have done the best job in explaining what we intended, but I think your language clarifies what we really meant to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to allay Representative Leclerc's, there's a thing in here on one of the provisions, and it's only in the 2024 budget that we're talking about this, so it's not an ongoing every year.
Right, I did know that, but I wanted to make sure that we were all on the
yeah.
same page. But thank you.
Impugn
No,
that.
didn't appreciate
I
that.
think I'm sure it's fine. We were just trying to expand on your good thinking.
Well, it's a love fest.
Yeah, right. I'm running for office.
Some of us aren't.
Some of us are.
So many people are like, oh, Janet Ansel was talking about how nice it is not to be weighted down by the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there are quite a few in that bucket.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what was unclear was there was a once,
Yeah.
obviously, but it could interpret, I think, that anytime there was change, that you're going to have to do that. But if you have any free time before, it's gone away now.
Or maybe there won't be a lot of changes.
Well, you're going to have to justify, I mean, every single,
That wasn't what I understood.
If you want to go above the $50,
Right.
you have to justify why this board should get above $50. And in 3 years, if you say, we set it at 75, but we would like this year to go to 100, then you'd have to justify. And it strikes me the same as agencies and departments justifying everything that they put in their budget to the executive, because they have, when they present a budget, they have to justify what those.
defended. Well, and that's still the part, I'll be honest with you, I'm still a little unclear about is what additional, I guess, information are they going to need over and above what an agency or department would be already giving when you're talking about having a change in your budget this year over last year anyway?
Well, if they want to change from $50 to $200
Sure.
per diem, they're going to have to justify that. And I would suspect that the administration would have some criteria for how they're going to have to justify it. What's the workload? How often do they meet? What's the responsibility? Is it just advisory or is it?
Right, but then how is the because I think where the issue here is how the administration going to justify it to the legislature? Is it going to be, do they need an additional pre-authorization?
They just, I think they just justify it in their total budget and.
When they come in to testify before each committee or committee of each chamber, that's probably going to come up in the testing.
Right, but that's not what I
I saw you went from 200. Can you, inflation and whatever, and they meet, I don't know.
But I'm not sure that's what I heard there, that they want some
No.
notification.
No, because that's, Tracy just asked them, how is that going to get there? And she said, it's not. It's going to come with the budget.
Right.
And you're going to justify the total budget, just as if they have to justify now, if somebody asks for 3 additional positions, they have to justify that in their budget
But
presentation.
didn't Jane just sit there and say, but by the time that it gets to them in that form, it's too late, it's tout fini or however her term was.
And that's why I asked that question, and her answer was basically that the administration would be looking
Yes.
at that in advance before it got into the budget.
And just like anything else in the budget, the
How
legislature,
that was gonna happen?
but the legislature can change anything in the budget.
Absolutely.
So we could change that. They could say, no, those people shouldn't get this per diem, or no, you don't get those 2 new positions, or no, we're going to cut that program in half.
And I think if I'm guessing correctly, it's in the statute that it's set, and that's why this is important, because this gives us the opportunity to go outside of what's set in the statute.
What do you mean?
Are per diems set in the statute?
Oh, yes. Oh, I see.
So
Yes,
this-
yes.
This allows it to change.
Yes, you're right. That's exactly right.
I
Because,
mean, they're set now,
Correct.
but in this legislation, there's a floor, but there really isn't a ceiling.
No, there's not.
There's none.
there's not.
I don't know.
But that's one of the things that we're required to report on is whether there should be a ceiling.
That's what I said, there's a floor, but there's no ceiling.
Right, there is
but
no
one of the
ceiling.
things that we are required to report.
No, we aren't required to. They asked us to.
Shall submit a reading, it's a shall.
Okay,
Recommendation to the General Assembly on whether to establish a maximum.
Yep.
on whether to establish a maximum. So we should just, we either say yes or no, or,
Right.
yeah.
So just on that, Andrea, we probably should put that on the agenda for November.
I'm sorry, was it?
Should there be a maximum per
Well, the-
diem?
Yeah, Sunset Advisory Commission report on maximum per diems, section 9 of Act 134. Yep.
How much time would you like?
I don't know. 10 minutes.
Depends on how.
15 minutes.
How we all feel about it. I
Yeah.
suppose.
Just
Put
a
it-
discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just a
just a
discussion.
discussion,
I got a month to change my mind if I don't.
yeah.
Okay.
But that was your understanding. It is comes, the justification is at the executive level when people present their budget. And then it goes into the budget, and then it goes to the legislature, and the legislature, the 2 appropriations committees do whatever they do to the budget
Yep.
in general. They would do the same thing to that.
I realize I'm dense. I come from prior, let's say where the family trees telephone pole, but please explain to me what's different about what we just discussed versus what would have normally happened anyway.
Normally, they would have to make a statutory change to currently they're getting $50 a day. If they wanted to go above that, they would have to change the actual statute around that commission. Because right now, everybody gets $50 a day except,
Correct. But with the new language around the per diems, in statute, now we're saying that the agencies have the authorization to go through, do that.
yes.
Get that, makes sense, but I'm still, and I don't think it's a huge issue, but I'm still struggling to understand the difference between what we had originally intended and kind of where we wound up. The administration, whoever's proposing the change is still going to have to defend it to the administration, and then the administration is still going to have to come here and defend
Yeah.
that budget.
Yes. I don't think there's any difference between what we intended and what it ended up. I think they just rewrote it so that it was very clear that it made 2 steps, that the administration, that the justification is done at the administrative level, and then it goes into the budget. I think that was our original intent all along. Because we did say the agencies would present their budget to the governor or the finance director, or whoever reviews budgets. So I think
I think the only change is that the appropriation committee gets the information sooner.
well, I don't think they get it
Also-
sooner.
Because
She asked
it's part of the agency proposal.
to the administration,
Seems to be
because Tracy did ask.
Okay, then I'm wrong.
Understanding about.
I think the justification goes to the administration. Yeah,
My
you did
mistake
ask.
then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right. Have we beat that one up enough?
I think.
Okay. But we will have the conversation about should there be a
Yeah,
maximum. Yeah, anyway,
we're back on time, but
we are back on time. So,
I actually have when we talked to the Commissioner of Human Resources, I actually would like to see if there's a different way to approach per diem.
not in this conversation. We're not going to do that because we have 15 minutes here to
I'm just going to ask a question.
No, I'm going to say no, because that is a different conversation. We have 4 people to testify on this issue in 15 minutes. And I think if you want to ask that question, it should be asked outside of this meeting, because we have a very, an agenda item here that is clear, and that conversation could go 20 minutes or half an hour.
Yeah.
If we asked her.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to say that, but I think that we need to focus on the issue that's here. There are lots of questions that I have to ask the the Commissioner of Human Resources, but it's not appropriate to ask them here. So sorry about that, but if other people disagree, that's fine.
Well, I think
Disagree with me.
I think we have a lot to discuss with respect to Recce. And we have 4 witnesses that are.
Some are with us and some of us.
I think they are all, well, 2 are live and 2 are by Zoom.
Right. So would the 2 live people want to come and meet with us at the table? And you can come up together. And then the 2 Zoom people we have over there.
Sorry.
I want to ask her about her hair. No. Sorry about that. So we'll introduce ourselves because I don't think everybody knows all of us yet. So Matt, do you want to start?
I'm Matt Kraus. I'm one of the gubernatorial appointees.
Senator Collmore from Rutland.
I'm Tracy Delude. I'm the other gubernatorial appointee, and I do boards and commissions in the governor's office.
I'm Jeanette White, Senator from Windham County.
John Gannon representing Halifax, Whitingham, and Wilmington in the House.
And I'm Rob Leclerc representing Berry Town in the House.
So we had some conversation about the Retired Employees Committee on Insurance. At our last meeting, and we just had some unanswered questions, and we did get responses. We got some email responses. But I think we have some more, we have to vote on whether we should maintain or repeal or change. That's what our responsibility is. So we've asked you here to help us through this and help us understand the input from this committee and understanding that it's tied anyway, there's talk of changing things now. A lot of suggestions about changing retiree benefits. But I don't know if this committee has weighed in, and if not, why not? So.
Yeah, let me just to clarify, they have not weighed in because they have not met since 2020, which is a question that I have is why have they not met to appoint a new chair and to consider the change in retiree health benefits that's been proposed. So, I mean, I think those are 2 important questions.
So I don't know how you want to do this. We have 4 people. We have Commissioner Fastigi, Clark is with us, Steve, and Shelley. So how do you want to?
I'm Shelley, and I think the state should answer that because as a representative of VRSEA, we are guests or appointees to RECCE. We're not on the RECCE committee officially. So it's the state that has not called the meetings to order, not VRSEA. So the state should answer that question as to why they haven't chosen a new chair and got it going.
So this isn't really a retired employees committee.
No, it's the RECCE committee
Yeah.
that the Vermont Retired State Employees Association is on the committee by appointment from the Secretary of Administration. But according to the RECCE rules and regulations, it's supposed to be 3 people from VSEA and 3 people from the state. And so as VRSEA, the way it's written right now, we are not officially a part of the committee. We are a part of the committee because the state has chosen to appoint 3 of our people to be on the committee.
When you say state, are you referring to the administration? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Secretary of Administration.
And in September 6th, I hand delivered a letter requesting the 3 new appointees. And because 2 people have left our board, one decided he wanted to stay on the committee. And so I appointed, with permission from our board, 2 other committee members to join the other one. And September 6th, I hand delivered a letter to the Secretary of the Administration, and I still have not heard a response as to whether they've appointed 3 of our people or 3 state employees. 3 people from the state, I should say. So we're left out of the completely as of this moment.
So I still am confused about the committee itself and and I know that we got Steve Howard's response about the relationship, but the committee is established to review the health insurance benefits available to retired employees. And yet there's no retired employees on it, and it all goes through VSEA anyway, and
Well, at the moment, it should go through VSEA, all of it should. But if the state decides to change our coverage and our plan, our SEA should have a voice. We currently have over 7,500 retired state employees that we send information to through a newsletter. And VRSEA currently has over 2,000 members, paid members. And even though the rest of them we represent through our newsletters, they have our personal phone numbers, the people on the board. I get calls regularly and emails regularly from retired state employees. And as a retired state employee myself, a lot of them are very concerned that the state is trying to change what we now have. And since we haven't met on the RECCE committee, we haven't had a voice or an input at all.
well, okay, I'm not gonna, I remember when Cornelius Reed was president, and he used our committee room all the time for meetings. He had meetings there all the time. So he was a retired state employee, and he was meeting there all the time. So I guess and he was president, so I guess I'm a little confused about why, or maybe.
Well, VRSEA currently meets at 133 State Street because COVID was wishy-washy on who could meet where in the State House. We have reserved that room for a year. So we're still meeting in a state facility.
But this is just the Committee on Insurance.
This is the Vermont Retired State Employees Association.
No, but I mean, the Retired Employees Committee on Insurance is a different group.
And currently, we have been appointed by the Secretary of the Administration to the 3 state positions that are on the committee.
So,
And that has not been updated since September 6th, when we wanted to change who is represented.
so just so we understand,
Clear?
Well, just the language in the statute is the committee shall consist of 6 members. 3 to be selected by the Secretary of Administration, at least 2 of whom shall be retired state employees, and 3 to be selected by the Vermont State Employees Association, at least 1 of which shall be a retired state employee. So that is the membership of the committee.
And VRSEA, the board met, and we would like to be on the committee officially so that we don't have, right now, we're in limbo. We don't know if we're reappointed to the committee or not. We don't have any voice on the committee for how we feel about the insurance, whether it's changed or not.
But based on the statute that I just heard, the VSEA could appoint.
Not VSEA.
I recognize that, but they could appoint some of your members to be on that committee, could they not?
They could have been all 3.
Yes, but they don't.
Okay,
As could the Secretary of Administration.
sure, right. I'm just trying to understand.
And also, they have another committee, the Benefits Advisory Committee, who also works on benefits for state employees. And that is a labor committee where VSEA and the state have representatives. And we were invited, VRSEA was invited by the state to come to those meetings. But when I asked if we could also change those people who are appointed by guests, as guests, we still haven't heard from VSEA. So at this point, right now, there is nobody from VRSEA represented on either the Benefits Advisory Committee or RECI. And we really would like to be a part of RECI officially, so that you know how our members feel.
Sure.
We're growing on a regular basis, and at some point, there's going to be more retired state employees than actively working state employees.
It's pretty close right now.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
So what you're suggesting is, it could either be expanded to 9 members. So you have 3 appointed by the administration, not specifying who they are at all. 3 appointed by VSEA, not specifying who they are, and 3 appointed by VRSEA. That would,
Yes.
that would do it.
What we are recommending.
Or you could say that 2 of the administration appointees and 2 of the VSEA appointees should be VRSEA. I mean, there are a couple ways of going about it, but you want to have regular seat on that committee. And the 9 members seems the cleanest way.
It's an option.
But it's an, Rob?
Well, I'm still, clearly something isn't working. But again, I'm hearing that it has to be comprised of people who are permanently retired already.
Oh, 2 of them. 2 of them do.
So
3, I think.
I guess I'd like to hear from the administration and I guess the VSEA as to why, if you have this option, if you've had it, why aren't you using it? Rather than changing it.
Yeah, okay. Beth, Commissioner?
Hi, I'm Beth Bastigan, Commissioner of Human Resources. But we, as Shelley said, we have a benefits advisory committee. That's a contract committee that we have in the contract that we meet with the VSEA regularly to discuss healthcare benefits and other benefits. As well as there is in the statute, the Retired Employees Committee on Insurance, the RECI committee. In the past several years, I would say, for the administration's appointees to the RECI committee, we've worked with the VRSEA to put retired members on the committee. The last time we appointed was probably probably the winter of 2019.
Right.
Of 2019. And since those appointments, the state has invited the members, its appointees to that committee to all the benefits advisory committee meetings. So we feel like we have received input from those members, and those members currently, the members who Secretary Young appointed at the time were all active participants in the Vermont Retired State Employees Association. Those are Al Blake, Mary Lou Bolt, and Bruce Hyde. At the most recent RSEA meeting that I attended, and Shelley sent us a letter saying that two of those people didn't want to participate in the committee anymore, and she had some recommendations for some new appointees. I haven't had a chance to speak with those individual members to ensure that they, personally to say, yes, they didn't want to continue on with the committee before making recommendations on appointments to the Secretary of Administration. We have been meeting, we attended, I said one VRSEA meeting. Board meeting. My team board meeting, attended them earlier this month, and it was to talk about the specific issue of moving to a Medicare Advantage plan for state retirees who are over 65, which, and we've been trying to meet with a lot of different groups to talk about that plan and opportunities there. We formally met with the VSEA once, and as well, we've met with the VRSEA on, we just met with them once, but we've been engaging a lot of, exchanging of a lot of information. The retirees have had a lot of questions, and that's really been funneled through the VRSEA. So we've been getting a lot of input there. I feel like we, the administration, don't have an issue with the formation of the RECI as it is, but it is really about the retirees feeling like they have a voice in their benefits. So I would not have an objection to the change in the structure of the committee.
But your three appointments were all retired
Yes.
employees.
Okay.
And I believe the VSEA appointees are typically retirees as well. And in fact, the VSEA, many of the members of the VSEA Benefits Advisory Committee are retired.
So really the issue at hand here then is that the two of the three have asked to not be reappointed, so we just have to reappoint two for them. Okay, but those three positions were filled with the appointees were, as Jared said.
And the statute doesn't require that we consult with a VRSEA or that we appoint members of the VSERA. I could appoint I could appoint any retired. The statute says two need to be retired state employees, and then I could appoint somebody else as well.
But my problem with not having us officially on the board and not having the two people removed and two people replaced, so that we have three people appointed by the Secretary of Administration. My problem is the statute says if you would like to have a meeting, three of the people have to request a meeting, and we have not been notified if we have three people on the committee at this moment, because September 6th, we sent the letter requesting three. They have not been appointed, so we have our hands tied where we cannot request a meeting of the RECI, and we tried.
So so the members that were currently on that, unless they are refusing to participate.
They do.
They refuse, because they were at your board meeting, unless they're refusing to participate, they can still maintain that they're on the committee until they actually resign.
Are replaced.
They haven't done, so.
Well, they did officially send a letter to the board saying they do not want to be on the committee, so I wrote the letter requesting new people. And our board always votes for new appointees. It's not just appointed by the president. The board as a whole votes, and the people have to say they're interested. And so that's what we did. We had our board meeting, we voted, we appointed them, the three people. Bruce wanted to stay on, and the two other people were appointed to replace the other two. So I sent a letter. And we still, a month later, have not heard if we're a part of the Recce committee or not, and the two people who don't want to be on it are not participating. I invited them to our board meeting because it's wishy-washy. We don't know if the state still recognizes them and refuses the other two, or if the new ones are apart. So I invited everybody to the meeting.
So so you need 3 people to ask for a meeting. So you have one appointee and VSEA has 3 appointees. That's 4. Couldn't the VSEA people?
Well, I was invited to a VSEA meeting by the commissioner, and at the meeting, everyone, the president of VSEA said that everyone with VRSEA is not invited to this meeting, and we left.
Well, that was going to be so the VSEA can appoint 3 people. Have any of your folks been appointed through the VSEA in the past? And are any of your people on this board now appointed by the VSEA currently?
No, because they haven't responded to my request.
Okay, so.
And I hand-delivered it. I mailed it to the president of VSEA, and I hand-delivered it to the chair of the BAC committee.
Right.
And we still have not officially been appointed, and we were asked to leave the meeting that we had been invited to.
What I'm hearing is
Actually, the commissioner invited us.
has actually gone and done what was expected of them, except we got an issue with 2. The VSEA has done nothing for you folks.
So,
Well, I take it back. VSEA does a lot for our folks. They bargain our pension, they bargain our health benefits. VSEA, we do not want to be separated from VSEA. VSEA does a lot for us. And as a retired state employee, we have many state employees who have devoted more than 30 years of service to the state. And they do not want to be separated from being a part of VSEA in bargaining for our benefits.
He's advocating that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying, when I said we don't want to be a part of VSEA, we do want to be a part of VSEA.
Even more of a part
Yes,
of
yes.
this board.
Yes,
They have done nothing for you in regards to this board.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
so I think Beth put her finger on it as far as I can tell, that the appointees from the VRSEA, the administration can appoint or should appoint at least 2, and the VSEA is supposed to appoint some. But that there is a feeling that because VRSEA is not officially on here as an entity, that it's the feeling that of the retired employees that they don't have a voice, that their voice depends on the administration and VSEA, and that they would like to have their own official voice on this committee. Is that?
Perfect.
I think Beth said it, I said it in a lot more words, but it seems to me that's the crux here is.
And we would like it to be meeting regularly.
Right, well, and that's the other question that we need to resolve is it has not met for 2 years. I understand that the chair passed away. But given that there's been a proposal to change retiree health benefits.
We're needed.
And it is needed and it has not met, which is a concern of mine, that the committee that's supposed to make a recommendation to the Secretary of Administration about retiree health benefits has not met when there is a proposal to modify retiree health benefits. So I think Beth wants to.
I just, Clark Collins, he's our deputy director of benefits, and he can talk about the history of how we bid out our healthcare contracts, but it's not, I don't know that we've ever, that something, having the Recce meet prior to or providing information about the contracts that we're doing, it's not something that's traditionally I would say it's something that's traditionally happened when the retirees, last time the Recce committee provided information on things that they would like to add to the benefit plan was a few years ago.
Hearing aids, we
With
sent a
hearing
letter.
aids a few years ago. So it's not saying, it's just, once that process has started, it's not helpful to get the recommendations after we've put something out to bid. So I think it's, the point is to have the information of
Yeah.
the changes you would like to make in the benefits or something that's impacting them prior to the bid.
Well, and that's
what the statute.
Others VRSEA is that we were not consulted that there was going to be changes to have input.
The statute is very clear that recommendations shall be made prior to the bidding process conducted under section 631.
Correct.
So I'm going to make a proposal here. I'm going to propose that we add 3 members to the statute that are appointed by VRSEA. I'm going to make that proposal so that we can focus on it. And I don't, that's what I'm going to do and see.
Are you advocating increasing the board
Yes.
membership by 3? or
Yes,
just that-
increasing the board membership by 3. So you have 3 administration appointees, 3 VSEA and 3 VRSEA. And then I think that the Commissioner of Human Resources also has 1 appointee in there. So that's,
It's not an official member.
Right.
but yeah, and that's what I'm going to, and they don't seem to be spending a ton of money. So I don't think that would impact any budgets anywhere, and it would give the retired state employees an official voice of their own as opposed to going through the other 2 bodies.
I have to say, I would be reluctant to support that because that shifts the balance of this group significantly from right now it's balanced to now all of a sudden you've got either current or former VSE members. It's a 2-to-1 change there. Because if you go from 6 to 9, the administration only keeps 3.
But they're appointing the retired employees anyway.
Sure.
But they're not going to do bargaining. This group doesn't do bargaining.
Well, it doesn't do bargaining, but they're going to come back with recommendations and have some input into different things on their benefits. I would be more inclined to change what the VSEA is, that they appoint 1, 2, or all 3 of their appointees from this group.
May I speak? VSEA does not represent all the retirees. There are people that have retired, like we have governors in our association.
Yeah.
So VSEA does not represent the bulk of retirees. They only represent the retirees who were part of VSEA when they retired. So if they are not, if it's not divided equally amongst the 3 of us, VSEA will not necessarily appoint VRSEA. In fact, a few years ago, their council was trying to tell people when Goldie was still alive that they wanted to pass a bylaw that says if you belong to VRSEA, you cannot belong to VSEA. And it didn't pass because Goldie was a member of both organizations. And she saw the benefit of us working together. But still, they wanted to separate us out. And if they do, VSEA, if they have members, if it goes again, that they have another bylaw change and it actually happens, they will never be able to have somebody on VSEA that's a part of VRSEA if their bylaw does pass in the future. And as everyone knows, the administration changes regularly. VSEA's administration changes regularly, depending on who gets voted in, and everything is in motion all the time. And so if you have only VSEA and the state, VRSEA may not be appointed by the state, and VSEA may not have VRSEA could be left out still if it remains the same.
I'm going to, Steve, do you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oops, did I freeze? Can you hear me?
Nope, you're fine.
Oh, good. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. For the record, I'm Steve Howard, the Executive Director of the VSEA. I would like to say, first of all, let me just state the VSEA's position. RECI is a very important part of the discussion that is now ongoing about retirees' health insurance. And it's an important committee that we hope would not be sunset. We believe the 3 members who have just recently been appointed by the VSEA can provide useful feedback to the administration related to their benefits. So we would support continuing the existence of RECI. We support our 3 members on there. I do want to just clarify, VSEA does not appoint members of another organization to fill seats that are given to VSEA by statute. We have filled them with members of the VSEA. We don't appoint members from other groups to fill seats that would go to members of the VSEA. We take no position on whether VSREA should have 3 additional seats, but we also would not want to change the configuration that would reduce the number of appointees the VSEA has.
Thank you.
So Steve, so VSEA has 3 appointees on RECI right now, correct?
Yes.
Can I ask why they didn't call a meeting to appoint a new chair and to consider the proposal to change healthcare benefits for retirees?
Yes, that's a good question. So first of all, I do think a lot did fall apart when Goldie unfortunately passed away, Goldie Watson, who was the chair. We sort of lost track of this committee in the midst of all that COVID brought in the pandemic. You know, we had to sort of prioritize and triage where we put our attention. So I think in the midst of that, we lost track of replacing our members who have either unfortunately passed away or left. So we've now done that. We've reconfigured that. We didn't advise the administration on this proposal because the administration, while they were formulating this proposal, never shared it with us. The first we heard about this proposal was on the Friday before Labor Day of this year, late in the afternoon. And so that we would have to know that the administration is planning to do something like this before we could advise them on it. So that I think that explains why we haven't had any input into it, and I think that's further justification as to why the committee should now continue in existence and should pick up the ball of fulfilling its mission.
Beth, you have
I just
Commissioner?
wanted to add to what Steve said regarding the VSEA having no idea about this proposal. Before the bids went out, the VSEA members of the BAC did review the bids, as well as participated in bid presentations this summer. So
I think that's different. There's a distinction there, Commissioner. There was never a formal notification to the VSEA that the administration intended to change the coverage of the retirees until recently. So what was in the bid proposal and the information you saw in the bid proposal is distinctive from an actual decision by the administration to pursue a change.
I just wanted to clarify those things. I don't really want to argue the rest of it, Mr. Howard. I just wanted to make sure that it was not a secret that we were asking for proposals for Medicare Advantage, as well as hearing presentations before the administration was looking to go in that direction.
Yeah, and I don't think that we want to get in the middle of that. I think that's between the administration and the union and the employees. So I don't think we want to go there, but I do I do like the idea of adding 3 members
Well,
here.
I agree with that, but I'm also concerned that the recce has not met.
Yes.
And there is a proposal on the table.
Yes, I'm concerned about that.
That concerns me a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to get, I guess, clarity, at least in my mind, as to whether recce is going to meet to consider this proposal.
Yes, and so let's ask Steve that. You have 3 current members. Are you going to ask for a meeting this afternoon? Are you going to go
Yes.
leave this meeting and go ask for a meeting?
Yes, our 3 appointees are very eager to meet, and we
Good.
we are gonna request a meeting of recce.
Okay. We will,
I'd like to know the day and time, right?
we will hold you to that, and we will watch for the invitation to the meeting. I mean, we're not going to come, but we'll watch for the announcement that it's going to be meeting in the next week.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a proposal to add 3 VRCA members.
I did have that proposal. I don't know that nobody seemed to pick up on it except you and me.
No, I heard, no?
Oh, and Rob weighed in, but
I did, and I understand, and I want to understand more. If we had to vote today, I'd vote against it, just because I need to understand more of this.
I'm curious, do you believe that the Recce Committee has, you were talking about power, the power structure would be different. Do you believe that the Recce Committee, when they recommend something, that will have a lot of weight? Because we did recommend hearing aids years ago and nothing ever happened. So I'm curious, what do you feel is the power of the Recce Committee, weight-wise?
That's a very fair question. And I'm not sure I can sit here and tell you what I think, because I don't know the history of the Recce Committee and whether it should be totally advisory, or if some of the recommendations they have should really be considered more than they have been. So that's a very fair question, but I don't know.
okay, I have another proposal, since that one seemed to fall like a thud.
No?
Well, since, I mean, just think about this. Since VSEA has promised us that they will request a meeting, that answers one of our concerns. What if we, I hate to say this, John, what if we kicked this to the Retirement Oversight?
Pension oversight.
Pension Oversight Committee? Oh, no, that's just pension oversight. Yeah, no.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Hear from the rest of the committee how they feel about adding 3 of us to the committee? I
Sure.
only heard from one person.
Well, 2,
Well, no, and I spoke at our last meeting
Yeah.
and asked why there was not any representation from VRSEA. So, I mean, it seems to make some sense to have members of the organization that represents retired employees part of this process.
Let's be clear, I should be represented, absolutely.
Well, as past president of VSEA and the current president of VRSEA, I can see both sides. So
Sure.
I believe that your proposal is excellent, because VRSEA and VSEA should work together for the benefit of retirees completely. And right now, the union is created to represent active state employees, because those that are retired have no more labor issues. So, I feel we should work together, and we should work together with the state. I mean, VRSEA on the new proposal, even though we oppose it, we have met with the state to try to understand what the proposal is. And we've asked several questions to get an understanding of what they're proposing. But as state employees, past state employees, retirees, we don't like contracts. They always blow up in our face, and we feel very safe and secure with the state taking care of us. So that's why we should work together.
Well, that's, I guess, where I would disagree with your current director now, that you folks should have 1 or 2 of those current positions in regard to this. I think that would be very appropriate.
And credit to Beth, we had agreed to meet for 1 hour for them to answer our questions so we could talk to our members, because we are going to be sending out a newsletter to over 7,500 retired state employees to give them some input and what's happening. And they gave us 3 hours of their time answering our questions and have given us emails on a regular basis explaining answers to our questions. So when you work together, you understand what's happening and you can talk to your retirees.
From my perspective, the administration has worked with you folks.
Yes.
In the past and continues to currently.
Yes, and we will be scheduling another meeting to continue with more questions that have come up. But VRSEA is opposed to making any changes to our health plan, because once you're 65, so many things happen in your life. And those people that have donated over 30 years of their life to the state as employees should be taken care of until they die and have a safety feeling. So, which we have with VSEA.
Sure.
So if I could hear more.
So 3 of you haven't weighed in yet on my.
Yeah, I see Steve's hand up. I don't know if we want to have him go.
I'm not sure we want to debate this either. I mean, he's weighed in once, he's asked for us.
Okay.
No, I'll hear what he has to say. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify. So the VSEA represents both the 6,000 active employees, but we also have a VSEA retirees chapter that is part of our union that represents members of the VSEA who have retired. The organization VRSEA is a combination of those who were in the bargaining unit and those who were outside of the bargaining unit. So in other words, managers. So I just want to make sure it's clear that VSEA does represent its retirees in its own retiree chapter. The other organization is a separate and distinct organization from VSEA because it includes managers.
Okay, yep. Fine.
I'm more confused now than I was when we started.
I'm sorry.
I'm sympathetic, and I think that the VRSEA folks should have some input and some representation, but I don't know that it should be 3, 3, and 3. That's where I am. I'm sensitive to that. I understand. I don't know whether it should be 1, 3, and 3. I'm trying to walk a middle ground, I guess, here. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm sympathetic also to Rob's point that it sort of unbalances, if you will, the 6 members that are there now. But I'm not so sure how important that is, since it's basically a recommendation and an advisory function. But you could probably anticipate that many of the recommendations will be by a 6-3 vote if it's 3, 3, and 3. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just shooting from the hip.
Well, do remember that the state appointees that are to that committee will be retired. So it will affect them as well in their decisions.
Yep, okay.
So the difference between the VSEA retired chapter and VRSEA is
recognized in statute.
Right. But that Beth, when she retires from state service, she can join the VRSEA because she's a retired state employee, but she cannot join the VSEA retired chapter because she was not a member of the VSEA to begin with.
Oh.
So
it's like Bruce Hyde was a director and now he's a part of VRSEA because when he was a director, he was a manager.
Yeah.
And now he's a part of VRSEA. He's actually on our board. So that's the difference. He cannot join VSEA. It's exclusively for VSEA members only.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
My only 2 cents would be if we're talking about changing the makeup at all, adding, which I'm not a big fan of adding, but I think we're probably better off to look at the clarification of the seats that exist. If we're changing statute, we could say that this seat will be occupied by this organization, this seat will be organized, and that might be the better way of doing it than increasing the size. But I think it's a larger discussion for another day.
This is a very complicated subject. I am a retired state employee. I do get your newsletters. I do read them. I also have been aware of the discussion that's going on with regard to the proposed change in retiree benefits. On a personal level, it's pretty complicated. I haven't rendered a decision one way or another regarding this. I sort of go along with Brian here that this discussion has made it a little bit complicated for me to understand rather than simplifying. So I guess I want to hear more before I render a decision.
So the Secretary of Administration's two, which have to be retired. And Zay appoints three.
Well, we did answer one question. They are going to meet.
Yeah, that's good.
So we got that much done.
So, right now, we have, well, we don't really, because the VSEA is going to appoint a VSEA retired employee. They're not going to appoint, because Steve just said, they're not going to appoint Beth when she retires.
No.
Because they aren't going to appoint somebody from a different, I'm sorry to be you, but.
Clark maybe, but not Beth.
So.
Everybody wants Clark.
So in fact, and the two that are appointed the two retired people that are appointed by the administration can be either just VSEA retired people or VRSEA. There's no distinction there, right?
Or neither, or people who don't participate in any organization.
Right.
Anybody they want.
Right.
Anybody they want. Well, it does say two retired people.
But all retired peers are not automatically, are they automatically members of VRS?
No, but it could be me. I'm retired.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a retired employee, I don't think.
No,
It just says two retired people.
it just says retired.
State employees.
State employees.
Oh, state employees. Okay, so it does have to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the retired people on this committee are retired state employees.
Yes,
There's three of them. Two of them appointed by the Secretary of Administration, one appointed by VSEA.
and the VSEA person is only a VSEA member.
Right.
And
By VSEA's choice.
Right, by their choices.
Right.
They could appoint one of these folks, and they haven't.
But they're not going to. Steve just said VSEA is not going to appoint somebody from a different organization to represent.
Well, that's their choice.
That is their choice. But I'm concerned about the retired.
So am I.
The RSEA. And how we make sure that they, I don't know, what do you want to do? It's pretty clear we won't repeal this
Yes.
board.
Good.
I mean, I think that we've made that decision, so we're not.
Good.
And we do have a promise that there will be a meeting.
I'd personally move that we leave it at that.
So maybe the committees of jurisdiction should look at the makeup of this board to, or of this committee, it's called, to look at the committee and take more testimony and confuse them as well as us.
I'm not as confused as I was earlier.
No, I'm not either, but
Yeah. So I'd make
Does
a
that make-
motion that we don't repeal. I don't know that there needs to be any more than that, right? Because we're not going to put on our motion that they're going to meet. So I would just move that we don't repeal.
And the state will, if there's going to be another meeting soon, the state will appoint people from the RSEA.
I can't promise new appointments.
Because she's not the one that appoints us.
Yeah, I know.
But I can say that the current appointees, if they're willing to attend the meeting.
Well, no, I've got one of them out of the area and she definitely is not even on the board and doesn't want to.
But we can invite, Steve can invite them. And then even if only one of those people attends, there'll be 4 people at the meeting, plus Clark.
All right, so just to clarify so there's according to the questionnaire we received, there's the administrative appointees are Bruce Hyde, Al Blake, and Mary Lou Bolt. So.
And Mary Lou is out of the country. She is out of the state. She's.
Has she resigned?
Yes.
They both have.
Resigned officially. So has Al Blake has officially resigned.
Okay.
And the 2 people that are wanting to be on it, actually Mary Lou recruited Beth Tansman for the health department and has been on several committees with the governor.
Yeah.
Beth is waiting in the wings to be appointed by the state, which hasn't happened.
So I'm getting the sense though, they didn't resign to everybody they need to resign to? Is that, you seem to.
Well, I sent a letter to the commission, to the Secretary of the Administration with the copy to Clark. September 6th, Clark Collins.
By the way, what is his role here?
He testified last week. Last month.
I've got an excellent memory, but it's short.
My name is Clark Collins. I'm the Deputy Director of Benefits and Wellness. And yes, we did receive the letter with the VRSEA's recommended appointees. Ultimately, the Secretary of Administration it makes the final choice as to who gets appointed to the Recce committee. So the letter was received, and I can confirm that the letter has been received.
I hand delivered it. I wanted to be sure that it was received.
So Commissioner, you seem to have some question about whether these 2 members have resigned?
I haven't heard from them personally that they resigned. And for example, Al Blake, at the last meeting that we invited him to,
He asked questions, so did Mary Lou.
Yeah, so they
not in the capacity as a Recce representative, because they resigned and they were there as guests.
Well, wait a minute. I think that Clark, why don't you tell Beth that they actually resigned? Because.
Well, but wait a minute here, because this is confusing, because these are people that are appointed by the administration. So theoretically, they have to notify the administration.
They did.
No, they notified her.
No.
She sent the letter to the administration.
Secretary of Admin.
They notified you, and then you sent a letter to the administration.
Yes. And Clark just said that he'd seen the letter.
Right.
So now, Clark, why don't you tell Beth?
This is semantics, but these folks didn't resign directly to the administration.
Well.
Is that?
So to be.
In the past, if I could clarify this, Clark, in the past, the president of the RSEA has sent a letter to the Secretary of the Administration requesting appointment of members to Recce and given a name.
Yep.
They never got a letter straight from the person themselves. They got it from the president of the RSEA.
For appointments, but how about resignation?
And when they resign, they get that letter from the president of the RSEA because they resigned to the board, and the board recognizes that they resigned and appoint somebody new, and the president on their behalf sends a letter to the Secretary of the Administration. I sent a letter to the Secretary of Administration, as in past practice, a copy to Clark Collins to let him know and the secretary know that we have 1 person who wants to stay on and 2 people who want to be appointed.
So Commissioner, is there some dispute about whether these 2 people have resigned?
looking at Clark on it.
Okay, Clark. One of you.
So.
Do you need an official email from both?
Just, can I get an answer from the administration on this?
I don't know if a Recce meeting was called since the new recommendations from the VRSEA haven't been appointed yet. And I'm not sure that those would necessarily be the appointees from the administration.
No, I understand that part. What I'm trying to clarify is have two people resign.
If the Recce meeting was called and they were invited as the appointees, I don't know if they would say, no, I'm not going to come out.
No, but they've resigned.
So you're not answering my question.
I don't know.
But he got a letter.
Clark, have two members of Recce resigned.
I have learned of their resignation afterwards. Just to be clear, the letter gave recommendations for the VRCA to their appointees. It doesn't necessarily say that the old appointees resigned. It's just simply putting forth their recommendations. So but either way, when the letter is received, the Secretary of Administration will consider that in her deliberations about who will be appointed to the Recce. It's not necessarily the Secretary of Administration makes the final call per the statute, makes the final call as to who actually gets appointed. So the VRSA might make the recommendations. We can obviously consider the recommendations.
But we're talking in circles here. The basic question that John asked is, did they resign? That not how they're appointed and how the appointments are made, but did they resign? Did Mary Lou and Al Blake send a letter to you?
Yes, to the board.
To the board saying, I want to resign from this board. You then forwarded that to the Secretary of Administration.
No. I then had the board vote while they were at the meeting. They sent a formal letter and came to a meeting and personally said who they will recommend replace them.
Okay.
The board voted to accept that recommendation, and I sent a letter to the Secretary of the Administration saying that one member wants to stay on and we would like to appoint two other members.
Okay, so they never did get a letter from the people saying, I resign.
And they never have. Nobody has ever sent a letter to the administration saying, I resign.
Is that correct?
Secretary of Administration.
Secretary of Administration.
I don't know.
Clark?
Per my time working with the state and per my time as an acting representative on the Recce, I have not seen a letter of resignation. Again, just the recommendations from the VRCA for appointees, but never a official letter from the member resigning.
Well, I can tell you whatever we do with approve with advice and consent from the Senate, appointments to committees, I've never seen a resignation letter. What we get is we get a list of potential people to be nominated or assigned, and then we call them up and say, do you want to be on there? But I've never seen then somebody send a resignation letter to the board. They just don't want to be reappointed. So I
add, if the Recce is meeting and until new appointees are made, typically the other appointees would continue to serve. They could say, no, I'm absolutely not going to attend any more meetings. But I'm not sure that those two people would not attend a current meeting if there were no new appointees in their set. They're very committed. They're very committed. And
there's nobody
are committed as well.
New person.
Spot. And my problem is if a meeting is called and they haven't been officially appointed, we will not be present at the meeting. That's what's going to happen because the two people who no longer want to be on the Recce committee have two people to replace them that are eager to meet and very devoted and committed to working on behalf of retirees. And they will not be at the meeting because they haven't been officially appointed. So the meeting will be lopsided with 3 people from VSEA and 1 from VRSEA.
So Beth could just take a little name card and write Mary Lou on it and go to the meeting.
No.
Not you, Beth. Beth Tansman.
Oh.
No.
Oh, I know, no. I know.
And that's the problem I'm coming up with is we are not officially anything on this committee, and we do not have a voice unless we are officially, it's at the purview of the person appointing them. They could say no.
I understand the past practice of VRSEA accepting resignations from the people appointed to RECCE. However, what's typical practice in appointing people to a board is that if somebody's going to resign, they have to resign to the person appointing them. So that person knows that there is an opening on the board or commission to make an appointment.
We can get that done quickly.
And because from what I'm hearing from the commissioner is,
Yeah.
and I may be incorrect, that there's some confusion about who is still on the RECCE.
Yeah, because I think that normally people serve until their
Terms up.
replacement is, that's the way most.
And I think I confused it for Beth because I invited people that were not on the board. Because VRSEA board meetings are not, they're open to any members.
Yeah.
Anybody could have come. It didn't have to be those two people. And I think I confused you because you thought they were part of the board and the people that came were not.
Okay. So I would suggest that that this is a conversation that really needs to be held between VRSEA, the administration. I can see Tracy jumping in her seat here, going to get these appointments made.
It's not me.
I know. You don't make the appointments.
Not for the Secretary of Administration.
Oh, you don't deal with that? Oh, just governor's appointees. Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, but nobody does
Okay, then.
anything like that without consulting with you.
But, so let's try and get them appointed. Let's make sure that VSEA calls this meeting, and let's.
And if the Secretary of the Administration decides not to appoint anyone from VRSEA,
Yeah.
is this a closed committee?
No, then I think.
Can VRSEA members come and have a voice even though we're not appointed?
Well, it's a public meeting. It's an open meeting, I would think.
Well, and I have a problem that the VSEA is shut you folks out. Why is it got to be exclusively the administration's responsibility for you to have representation when they either were your former union or in some cases? So that, to me, that's not appropriate. So that's another conversation you need to have.
Yeah.
But we can't change this now.
No.
Well,
We're just not.
Commissioner Fasici is aware of that because she was on the Zoom meeting when we were asked to leave.
Sure.
I think that when the administration has a meeting with this committee, that it's probably considered a public meeting, an open meeting. I would think most committee meetings are considered subject to open meeting law.
Okay.
But I also think that we've probably, this is one that we've probably talked almost to death, and that we will recommend maintaining the committee. And then we will send a letter to the committees of jurisdiction, which would be the two House GovOps committee, the House and Senate GovOps committees, and tell them to continue this conversation to figure out, and they can take more testimony, whatever they want to do. And by then, maybe the committee is fully functioning and up and running again. And so is that?
Yes, because, this commission does not have the authority to change the makeup of the committee without proposing a.
Right.
So the only thing we can do is propose a bill to the legislature, which we'll take up next
Yeah.
session, to change the makeup of RECCE. And so that is as far as we could go. And what Senator White is proposing is we send a letter to the chairs of the two GovOps committees, saying this is an issue that came up and it needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
We can't change the makeup today.
even if we all voted for my brilliant suggestion here, it would only be a suggestion that went to the legislature.
I appreciate all of your input because when it does if it does come up in the legislature, our lobbyist is Bridget Morris. I'll make sure she understands that the confusion and the differences of opinion so that when she talks to people in the legislature, she'll have a clear idea of a lot of what people will be thinking.
Okay.
So.
And I'm very happy to hear that Recce is going to meet. Thank you, Steve, for doing that. And I hope that we can, if there are 2 openings on this committee, that they can be filled before that meeting occurs.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we want to vote to maintain?
I believe Rob motioned earlier.
Yes.
And I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, any more discussion?
All set.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Should we break for lunch and go fight all those bus people?
I might have missed them.
Oh, maybe.
Long gone.